One question that I get periodically is how to improve tolerances on particular geometries on a part. Sometimes, depending on the thickness of material, type of material, size of geometries that you're trying to cut, you can end up with different measurements on something like a small hole like this versus the outside of the part. You might cut something like this, and the outside dimensions are pretty close to where they need to be, but maybe this inside hole, because you're cutting it slowly, is oversized by more than you like it to be. Take a look at how you can hone in those tolerances. Basically 3 ways. We'll take a look first at adjusting the overall tool diameter. Already got a tool path on here, cut order, I'll go to process. And typically when you start to process this, you'll get this pop-up box here, which has your tool diameter. That's our current tool diameter we're using, and the tool path will be offset by half of that. If this box is not coming up for you, there's an option that can be turned on or off depending on whether you want this box to come up or not, and that's found under your settings area. Click on the gear here, go to strategy, and in the pull down at the top here, go to your various page, and if this box is checked, then that box will show up that allows you to enter the tool diameter. Click on this again. If I increase my tool diameter, inside cuts will get smaller, outside cuts will get larger. If I wanted this hole to be, let's say, 5/1000ths of an inch smaller, I can type in 0.045, and depending on a setting in your machine settings, you may get a warning like we're about to see here. If you need to be able to type in a larger value than what you've got, you can go into your machine settings and change that maximum value. Show you where that is. Cam tab, click on select, click on your machine icon, and then in the top pull down you want to go to the geometry page, and here's your maximum tool diameter. Note that if I do want to be able to type in 0.045, I have to make this slightly larger than 0.045, or I have to make the value that I type in slightly smaller than 0.045. Doing it this way will make all of your cuts smaller or bigger, depending, again, whether they're inside or outside cuts. So in the scenario I described, where the outside cut was pretty close to where we needed to be, but it was just the inside hole we want to adjust, what I just did there may not be the optimum way to do it. The other option is, if you just want to adjust your tool offset for one geometry or a few geometries, you can go into your edit button here, down here at the bottom, edit parts, click on a toolpath, and it'll bring up the edit toolpath box. I'll zoom in here a little bit. This is the one we're currently working on, number 1. We're on the leads tab. If we switch over to the properties tab, we have this extra tool diameter. This is a diameter, so whatever number that you type in here will be basically split in half on each side of the geometry. Again, if I want to make this hole 5/1000ths smaller, type in 0.005. And once you click out of this box, you'll see that this line is going to shift a little bit. I'll zoom in there a little bit more so you can see that. Go back to 0. Make it more dramatic. 10/1000ths of an inch, so that would be 5 thou per side. You can also go negative on this. If you need to make this hole larger, you could type in negative 0.010. Make sure I get my point in there. That would be pretty dramatic. So in this case, only this geometry is going to be affected. When I go to post this out, I would just go with my nominal 40 thou tool diameter, and then just that geometry is going to be smaller. Now, that's fine if you've got a part that's only got a couple geometries. What if you have a part like this? It's got a bunch of geometries. Be a little bit time consuming to have to go into edit and go to properties and change that tool diameter for each cut. could explode the parts and use the offset command and change the hole diameters. But fortunately, there's an easy way to do it without having to delete your toolpath and explode the part and redraw everything in CAD. Parts submenu, got this offset choice here. Down in the bottom, prompts us select objects. Can drag a box around all these, hit enter. And then similar to in the edit box here, if I have a positive number here, this is going to make these holes smaller by this amount. Let me just put a dimension on here first, just so we can see what we've got now. Right now they're 1/4 inch. Part, offset, select objects, enter, and 0.005. Zoom in here a little bit so you can see once I click out of this box here, click OK, those got 0.005 of an inch smaller. Delete that off and do the diameter dimension again. Now they're 245. Similar to the edit command, you can also put in a negative number there. Make this a little more dramatic. And because I was at 245 before doing the 20 thou, now they're 265. Do a couple Control Z's here. So that's a handy way of doing it if you've got a bunch of geometries. Now what about in this scenario here? Maybe these larger holes are cutting close to size, and again, you only want to change the diameter on these smaller holes. We do our part and offset command. Select objects. If I do this, it'll get everything. I can do something like this. Since I'm doing a left-right box, anything that's within the box it'll select. Or another handy way of being able to select a lot of entities is when it prompts me to select objects, right-click and choose Quick Filter. Up here at the top, you've got different entities that are in the drawing you can choose from. Since we're looking at picking circles, I can use this filter here. Radius smaller than, in this case, I've got 1/2 inch. Click OK. And then when I left-click and drag my box this way, it's only going to find those holes that are 1/2 inch or smaller radius. Hit enter. Again, whatever number you want to plug in here. And now all those will be changed. And these remain where they were. A couple other things to point out. Go to your process submenu, cutting parameters here. This is where you can specify what you want your nominal value for your tool diameter to be when we go to that process area. Right now we're telling it to use the mixing tube diameter, which we specified down here. You can uncheck this. If you find that you're generally needing to use a different tool diameter, you can enter that here. And then when you go to process, this window here, it's going to use that value now. Can also get to that same cutting parameters window in here. Click on that, brings you to that same location. One thing to be careful of is if it's enabled is this additional kerf field here. If this is enabled, it'll probably work opposite of how you think it's going to work. If I go into my machine settings, I have kerf compensation if this is set for IGEMS and controller. And you go into there, you've got now this additional kerf. People often think that this works basically the same way as what I was showing earlier. So if I wanted to make geometries, the holes 5,000 smaller, in general, I could type in 5 thou here, but this will actually work in the opposite direction. It allows you to add additional kerf at your controller. So if you posted it out like this, it would post it out with a tool diameter as if it's a 0.35 tool diameter, and then that allows you to add up to this additional kerf at the controller. Be careful about this one. Make sure you know what you're doing if you're going to use that one. Those are a few ways you can hone in your tolerances. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.